Our next speaker is Amrote Abdella. I'll just go through her bio. Amrote is the Director of Startups Engagement and Partnerships for Africa Initiative at Microsoft. Sorry, I'll just say that again. Amrote is the Director of Startups Engagement and Partnerships for Microsoft's For Africa Initiative, a multi-year commitment by Microsoft to actively engage in Africa's economic development to improve its global competitiveness. Prior to joining Microsoft, Amrote was in Geneva, working with the World Economic Forum as Associate Director for the Africa region, where she was responsible for key relationships and strategic initiatives with African government and business leaders. Prior to the World Economic Forum, Amrote was part of the World Bank in Washington, D.C., working on access to finance, focusing on Africa. She holds a master's in international economic development from the Heller School at Brandeis University in Massachusetts, and a Bachelor of Arts from Davidson College, North Carolina, USA. Welcome, Amrote.
Hi, good evening, ladies. So I'm not going to talk at you. In fact, this is going to be a dialogue. How many of you have been completely inspired and in awe of some of the ladies who've come forward? Don't be shy. They were pretty amazing. Truly, I think in our next lifetime, I think I want to be an Angela, a Lynette, a Wamboi, and then eventually a Sean as well as we go through. Yeah? But it's really, really a pleasure to be here. I have to admit that I am an imposter. There are people who create technology and there are people who consume technology. I am more of the latter. I consume technology. I can't code a line to save my life, but thank God for engineers who do. But I will tell you a little bit about my story. I think this is a bit of a free flow, so we'll go back and forth. I joined Microsoft in 2013, really because of the potential for Africa. I was abroad for a number of years. I'm originally from East Africa, from Ethiopia. But really, joining Microsoft for me was an important point of view, thinking of where is Africa today and what can technology do. I think Sean mentioned a few of the statistics around startups. What are happening? What are women doing, and how are we supporting entrepreneurship and SMEs? So there's a whole slew of discussions that are happening, but I never really understood what technology could really do. Until 2008, I was in Ghana working in microfinance, part of my work around access to finance. And how many of you are familiar with the concept of microfinance? Right, a large number of you. And the microfinance institution I was working with was actually focused on group lending. So in a group lending, if you're familiar with it, it's actually a group of women, 5 of them on average, who come together to take out a loan. And each woman signs off and is responsible to make sure that the loan is repaid on behalf of the group. So that means that if 4 of them default, that one unfortunate lady will have to pay the loan on time to make sure that they're able to cover the loans and get the second renewal. So that's the basic concept of microfinance. Particularly for this one group in northern Ghana, out of the 5 women, they were all entrepreneurial, very well respected. They came together, they knew each other, etc. They paid their loans twice, and on the 3rd time, they actually came a bit early for the group meeting. They came a bit early and asked, what is the process for actually eliminating members if they wanted to? And it was a bit puzzling because we didn't understand. The group was performing well, they were paying their loans, their businesses were thriving, and just we couldn't understand what was happening. Until one of them said, actually, we are in a bit of a trouble because one of the ladies is not paying her loans, and we've actually been covering for her for a long time. And we said, well, that takes quite a bit of courage. Why haven't you kicked her out? And they said, well, actually, it's a bit of a problem because she's the wife of the chief. So for all intended purposes, we'll have to keep paying on her behalf just to maintain her status, but for us to also maintain the cordiality with the group. So here's the solution that they came up with. The next day, the day of the repayment and the day of the disbursements for the next round, the lady showed up. And when she showed up, they all stood in line. They said, well, actually, they've made changes. The project has made changes. And she said, what changes have they made? Have we not paid? She said, no, we've paid. But this time, they're actually submitting names into a computer, and the computer approves whether or not people are able to get loans. And she said, they have. She said, yeah, they've installed a computer. She said, so what did the computer do? She said, well, it approved all 4 of us except for you. So that lady, believe it or not, accepted that excuse, walked away, and they were able to bring in a 5th person. So I'm giving you that story because it really shows sort of the ingenuity at a very small level. These are women farmers that we're talking about in the northern rural area of Ghana, really able that allows them to continue developing their solutions, but also really understanding that, you know, there is a concept of technology. Their kids, fortunately, are able to use it sometimes and then able to interact with it. But for them at that very basic level, to be able to integrate it was very critical. So I'm very passionate about Africa. I love Africa. I believe in our potential. I believe in what we are doing, and I believe in sort of the generation of what we have. But technology in that aspect is super critical. Not because it allows us to come up with answers for loan repayments with microfinance, but really because the creation of content, the innovation story that we can tell from Africa can really catapult where Africa is today as we think of our competitiveness. You know, where do we stand today? You know, some people have known and hear about Kenya, mainly because of Ushahidi, of IHAB. How can we create more of those? You know, how do we create more of the success stories of women entrepreneurs who are coming up through the ranks? So we think of Juliana, we think of Veronica from Safaricom. There's some phenomenal women in Africa who are doing great things. And how do we sort of give these women a platform so that they're able to inspire the next generation? We at Microsoft have had a number of programs and partnerships. One of the latest ones is with the US State Department, driving a STEM camp in Kigali, slightly outside of Kigali at the Goshora schools, where 120 girls came together for 3 weeks to learn, to develop, to code, to interact, to exchange with girls who were selected from different African countries, but also girls who came from the US, to really give that blended approach to really say there's an opportunity to, one, learn, share, build, test, some of the things that you've said, but really also encourage them so that they're not gun shy from science, from technology, from engineering, from math, so that they're able to really understand the potential, their own potential at executing, at delivering, at growing, at testing, and really being able to showcase that and to really say, you know, as we now go into 10th, 11th, 12th grade, as they're now thinking of making some critical decisions around their education, they're able to have the comfort of knowing that there's a possibility for them outside of some of the humanities backgrounds that are currently and mostly available to women. That's one. The second piece is around DigiGirls, and I think DigiGirls is one other initiative that we have proudly been sponsoring and supporting, and that's really thinking of providing mentorship, coaching, technical support, virtual academy to girls across Africa, and that's an initiative that has been adopted across Africa, and we're looking at scaling that. But I think for me, you know, as we're thinking of this audience of, you know, women, technology, there's a coding piece of it, and that's the sitting behind your terminal and the challenges that you face. But then there's also another piece around leadership, which is, you know, how do you have some phenomenal women like Sandberg, you know, to be at the top level of the likes of Facebook? How to create more of those to come from Africa? How do we create more Africans to actually create the Facebooks and have the women to be the Sandbergs in those institutions? So I think it's the concept of how do we enable, how do we empower, how do we, you know, unleash the power and the support so that, you know, we can confidently walk around and share our stories. I love Lynette's story around, you know, humility is for the weak. Fantastic, embrace that. I think I want to put that on a t-shirt and walk around with it. But, you know, like, how do we make and bring those together so that, you know, as you're walking into the iHub, you will find many women who are developing that you are able to start start businesses, become successful entrepreneurs, and then hire men to be behind you, right? So I think it's that concept of enablement, but also creating that cohesion, whereby, you know, we're creating the sustainability, but also creating the path for the next generation to come as well. So I'm briefly going to stop at that and let the next speaker to come on. Thank you.